While there have been plenty of transactions this year, there are two that particularly captivated the industry's interest, in large part because they were great examples of just how these dynamics are playing out in ways that a decade ago might have been unfathomable. First, earlier this summer, chilled protein play Perfect Snacks sold the majority of the company to snack brand Mondelēz. Then a few months later, indulgently flavored One Brands was acquired by Hershey's. In both cases, I heard over and over again how these were great examples of just how much has changed in our industry. So today, to walk us through both of these deals, how they came about and what the strategy looked like, please welcome Perfect Snacks co-founder Bill Keith, One Brand's CEO Peter Burns, and coincidentally, their common investment banker, Janica Lane. Hi. Janica, we'll put you in the middle. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I think this is going to be a really interesting discussion. I'd love to start, Peter and Bill, by giving a brief introduction to your companies and what your roles are. Peter, when you joined the brand and kind of how you got involved.
Sure. So One Brands is a high-protein, low-sugar, indulgent protein bar and was brought to the company in January of 17 by the Kavu folks and the founder, Ron McAfee. So that's how I got involved, and I'm the president and the CEO of the company today.
How about you?
How did I get started in this? Have you guys heard this story at all? Bunch of kids in a bus and all that? No, just to make it brief, 2005 started this. I was in college at the time, dropped out of college. My dad ended up getting sick, and I needed to support the oldest of 13 children. And so the first couple years were brutal, but ended up making our way in creating a new set called Fresh Snacking. In 2015, we received a minority investment from VMG, and in 2019, we received another investment from some folks called Mondelēz. So.
Well, you're kind of preempting my next question. I want to know a little bit about who your investment partners were and what that relationship looked like.
Mine's probably a little bit different than Bill's, so I'll start.
And that's great. I think part of the interesting thing about you guys was, although you both targeted protein and have a bar, the deals were very different, and what happened in these relationships were very different.
So I had a relationship with the Kavu folks just from being in industry. So was looking around for employment post-Justin's, and they came to me with an idea and looked at the brand, looked at the business, saw the space, and really found that there was a consumer need that needed to be filled, which was, for those of you who have eaten protein bars, the original experience is really not a good one, right? So you eat it, it's chewy, it's chalky, but you know you need it for your diet. So the consumer issue was if you could provide something that tastes great, indulgent flavors, new things like maple glazed donut, birthday cake, you have the ability to really solve a consumer need and drive a brand and a business. So that's what attracted me to the company.
Great. And how about VMG?
Yeah, so the consumer really led to the timing of VMG's investment. We were bootstrapped for 10 years, and we reached a point where it was a critical inflection time for us to bring on capital and smart money so that, again, what does a good, solid private equity company do? They help attract some of the best talent. To Scott's point, it's about the culture and the team that you create. And so we got some of the best executives in the industry to come on and sign up for this new set, this new emerging product. So for us, it's always been the question of timing and which partner. It has to be a culture fit. It has to be what is the consumer response to your product and what are the velocities in the set. That all determines the timing of your financing.
And so that bit of backstory in hand, now I'm going to speed up and move to discussing your respective deals. You were sort of in different situations, right? Bill, when you started the company, did you plan to eventually have an exit or sell a majority of it? It was very clearly a family-owned business. A lot of your family is involved, and I'm not sure that people always see that path for family-owned brands.
In the beginning, when I was hand rolling these bars in a small kitchen in Sacramento, I envisioned this future of fresh snacking. No, that's a bunch of yes. I was genuinely trying to take care of my family. That's again, if you know the founding story, trying to take care of my mom, trying to take care of my brothers and sisters. That's how a lot of folks, their back's against the wall and they got to make it happen. We knew we had a great mission that was unique, and we knew we had a great story and a great product. So again, every step of the way, the timing of this is depend upon the consumer response and how well the brand has developed in these sets.
And Janica, how important is like a founding story like that when you're trying to look at possible partners?
I think it's one piece of the equation that's super critical, and you always hear everyone talk about authenticity. I don't really know what authenticity even means. It's different for everybody, but I do think that when you have this brand, you have a product with a reason for being, a right to be on the shelf, a right to be sold on e-commerce, you have a brand that actually means something to the consumer, and I think that's a big part of it, is having a really deep founder story behind it.
So when did you decide that you wanted to sell a majority of the company, and that was the path you kind of wanted to go down?
So for us, it was at a point to where, again, if we didn't bring on the finances and the resources that we were looking for, we couldn't maintain that leadership of where we wanted to be. So every step of the way, it's been brand-led, consumer-led. We also had to look at the different partner options. For us, every private equity has their thesis cycle, right? And their natural investments thesis cycle. We wanted to have the ability to buy back the equity from our private equity company just in case we couldn't find that right partner to purchase that majority and keep us going. So again, it's very important at the groundwork that you lay out the rules and you're thinking about 10 years down the line on what's best for your brand.
And Peter, how about you? You were coming off of a successful exit at Justin's. So, was it clear when you joined the brand, you're going to come in and we want to see the same goal again?
Definitely, yeah. It's crystal clear, and like Bill, I mean, Bill's modest, but there are very few people in our industry that can be founder and CEO led, and he did both jobs. My situation was a little different in that Ron McAfee, our founder, had been in the protein business for 22 years. Success, failure, and launches a product called Birthday Cake in 2016, produces 10,000 boxes, and it sells out in 5 hours. And that led to really the birth of One Brands. And Bill had family and surrounded himself with great people. To Ron's credit, Ron knew that he could take the brand to a certain level. So he went out and got the Kavu folks, and then from there put in an experienced management team. And Bill's right. I mean, the management team, the folks around you from a talent perspective, and I was able to grab, the key folks that I've worked with on different projects to kind of follow me to this one. So, but for sure, the second you take private equity money, the clock is ticking.
No more board meetings at the Thanksgiving table. Got to be a little bit more formal now. And I tell you, part of the process helping out, Peter's been a good mentor of mine for years. Just want to say that. Really appreciate this guy.
I was on his board and he kicked me off.
It's actually true.
It's a true story, too.
Sorry.
We couldn't be in competing spaces, but Bill and the family are awesome folks.
So Janica, when people come to you and say, this is the eventual goal that I want to get to, are these kind of the steps that you would advise them to take to get to that place? Bringing on an experienced management team, finding these trusted advisors?
I think it's really different for every single brand, and it's interesting here because if you do look at some of the similarities, you have two businesses. I actually think nutrition bars is almost the last similarity. You think about what really made both of these brands work. It was founder businesses that actually stayed independent, bootstrapped for a really long time. It was bringing on professional management to really help bring the business to the next level. It was scaling the business before thinking about an exit, having really strong margins while doing that. And then, of course, on the product side, just creating an incredible proposition. On the one hand, this whole 1 gram of sugar, super indulgent flavors. It's kind of like candy bar plus without the sugar, with the protein. On the other hand,
We're your favorite, I know.
see what I had to deal with. On the other hand, creating this amazing fresh snacking proposition. Yes, it started with a bar. Yes, it started with a bar. You can see both businesses going in a lot of directions. So I think that was kind of what, at a high level, made these businesses really interesting and attractive when an eventual, majority transaction took place for both. How they got there was different in some respects, and I would always encourage folks to use the network, like Scott said before this, rely on advisors, but at the same time, do trust your gut. If you know what's right, do it.
That seems like not a daunting list of things that you have to achieve, though, before to make you an appealing target. So, once you settled on this path, how did you kind of figure out what next steps you needed to take? You both did things in your businesses, whether it's rebranding or creating a platform brand, to set you towards this eventual goal.
I'll take it, yeah. So for us, it was really running business as usual, but what Janica did is she came in and she immersed herself in the brand. And I think that's what really separates her from a lot of different bankers you're going to see out there. Obviously, her pedigree speaks for herself. But her team that's surrounding her, when they go in, they figure out all the little nuances and pick out the gold nuggets and all the really cool things that you want to communicate to these food companies across the world. But she helps you do that in a succinct way and in an organized way. And what it does is it gives you a chance to go tell your story, which is really cool. So when she came into the process, it completely changed how I was thinking, because again, not going through it before myself, on how you were going to approach, and her help was vital, obviously.
Even before you started on the process, though, I imagine, at NOSH Live, I think it was summer 2018, you announced that you were moving from Perfect Bar to Perfect Snacks, and you were going to be this platform. You wouldn't tell us exactly how yet, but you promised it was coming.
Gotta keep surprises.
So was that thinking about, okay, here's what we have to do to get to this place?
Well, our goal is to become a fresh snacking powerhouse. We've created the fresh snacking set, so we wanted to continue to be the leader. And again, this set has evolved over the last 15 years. When we first launched, we were put next to the salsas and the guacamole and all over the store. Now what you're seeing is a consistent destination throughout retail, right? So for us, it was all about what are the different eating occasions in this set. How are we going to maximize to where we can continue to be the leader in this set? And what partner is it going to take that really has the mission and thought themselves and the same purpose so that we can have that great alignment?
Peter, how about you? You definitely took some steps at the company to sort of reframe it and start putting it down this specific path.
It's fundamental for me. It's formulaic. Janica and I have known each other for a while, so we kind of know how each other thinks, so that we had a jump start on that whole thing. But fundamentally, it comes down to two things. It's people are a company's greatest asset. Mm-hmm. So you've got to go out and you've got to find all the right people. And I've had the fortune to work with great founders, but the folks who really do all the heavy lifting, Hunt Killa, my sales guy. Hello, Hunt. He's probably not watching. David Zygert in operations, Mark Dorn in sales. Folks that know how I think, how we think, and then from there, it's focus and discipline around what you're going to do. We had a great product, and our packaging was god-awful. And Oh Yeah was the name of the company, and it looked too busy. So fix the packaging, the product inside's great, and then it's just go out and execute.
All right, well, we've sped up Janica to, I think you're part of the story. So how did you become involved with these two brands? When did you jump into the process? How early on?
So it was a little bit different with both. As Peter said, he and I worked together with Justin Gold on the Justin's transaction several years ago. So I already knew him and got to know the brand and the other key stakeholders at One through him. I went back on both of these guys and actually looked at how long the engagements were, because I think people start to think, well, the engagement has been like 1 billion years with Peter now, but people think that you can kind of get start to finish through one of these deals in 4 months, 6 months. And the engagement with One Brands was about 14 months, actually, because we did a lot of upfront legwork, and then with the Perfect
About
Snacks
5
team,
years.
exactly. I still remember like all these really tall humans at trade show booths being like, who are these Keith people?
If you don't know, the Keith family height definitely is a key attribute.
Totally. But
Thanks
after getting to know them, the engagement was almost a year there. It was like in August to July, because when we're going in and we like to get to know these businesses over a long period of time so that there's already a relationship and an understanding of what the business is well in advance of a process. But if you think about the way these transactions play out, and these were two very different processes, dislike that word, but there's just so much upfront legwork, thinking about, is the company ready? Are the potential partners that we think we're going to target ready? How do we think about what the strategy is around them? How do we think about every single holiday in the year, be it spring break, where none of these executives are in the same place at these potential partners for like 4 weeks because every kid is in a different school, or August or December? And then what do we need to do to really think about, if you think about, distill down what these potential partners are most interested in? I think it's always product with a reason for being, brand, how the consumer interacts with that brand, what that brand means to the world. It is growth, and I'd say much more today than ever before, it's sustainable growth. How do you prove that if a business is growing quickly, there's actually long-term sustainable growth with very good margins? There is no tolerance for businesses without margins. And then I'd say innovation is the last thing. So, and that's not just build a really interesting product pipeline. It is, how do you innovate across every single area of your business? How you sell to your customer? How do you talk to your consumer? How you run your finance team? That is all innovation. So those are the things that we always think about, like, what does a potential partner care about at a really high level? And how do we, to Bill's point, kind of make that come out in a story and get folks to really understand the essence of the business and fall in love with the brand? And then there's everything else. And everything else is like 8 billion pages of nuts and bolts.
She means everything.
The feedback every time one of our clients goes through one of these processes is, we never had any idea how much work this was going to be. So the more upfront preparation that you can do before you even start thinking about an actual conversation with a potential partner, the better. So if you look at those timelines, it's months of upfront preparation followed by then actually starting a dialogue.
Is there anything, there's a lot of work that you need to do, but is there anything like emotionally you recommend brands do to kind of prepare for this process? Because depending on the business, it's your baby. You've been growing this for a long time, and that can be hard to let go of.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, we are making recommendations. The client is absolutely making the decisions, and we want to empower them to make those decisions, and they do have to trust their gut to some extent. And a lot of what we'll say is, as we're getting to meet these potential partners, we'll often encourage that there are some really early upfront interactions with founders or management and key stakeholders at some of these partners. And I'll always say, listen, worst case, you key stakeholders come out of these meetings with potential partners and you decide, there is no way I'm ever selling my business to that group for whatever reason. And a lot of the decision does have to be made based not just on, how does this potential partner help me grow my business, which is also super critical, but on how can I actually, work with these folks and feel good about myself and feel great about the brand over the long term.
It's an emotional process. I mean, I'm sure Bill will tell you where you have meetings, right? And you walk into a room and you meet folks and you look at each other and go,
Yeah.
This is it.
Exactly.
Right? This is the one. And then you leave, and they come back and go, no thanks, we're good. We're going to move on.
Or they'll tell you in the meeting that you're the one too. Like, oh wow, I think we're good.
So the advice that I would have for folks going through it is it's a journey. And if you allow yourself to go up and down in the journey, it's not good. Because what we have to do during all that Janica is talking about is we got to run a business.
Yeah.
Right? We have to keep things moving. We have employees that are looking to us. So try to keep the emotion as level as you can through the whole thing.
Having been through this with Justin's, was there something you wanted to do differently this time, or something you wanted to make sure that you absolutely really worked well in the last process in terms of running the team or running the business while all this was going on?
I think that the fundamental foundation of why businesses like ours get acquired by strategics is because they're built the right way. So if you think about building a house, right? You build your foundation, that's solid, then you go first floor, second floor. You don't go from foundation to floor 30. And a lot of businesses think that you can do that and go really fast. Some have worked. There are unicorns out there that have done it. But how long did you guys?
Just 15 years.
15?
An overnight success, really.
15 years. Justin Gold was 12 and a half. Ron McAfee, my founder, was 22 years of losing things, mortgaging houses, and then you get to this level. So you got to build it the right way.
And so what was that profile of a potential partner that you guys worked with Janica to figure out, and what were those red flags that if you had walked in a meeting, you would have been like, not the right fit?
For us, it had to be a culture fit, and you had to have the right gut instinct. I know for us, meeting different leaders across different companies, folks said some certain things, and I had the Mondelēz head of North America, the president of North America, Glenn Walter, as well as Jay Cooper in charge of growth for North America. They told me about their purpose. They told me about their vision of what it looked like. And I think it's so important that you're aligned there and that your gut is telling you this is the right decision. And then you have the intangibles. You say, okay, yeah, there's different avenues you can go, whether it be through traditional refrigerated products. They have, some of these companies have a little bit more experience in that. But we're looking 10, 15, even 50 years down the road. And one of the things that really attracted us was that this is a brand in Mondelēz that has taken care of and made relevant these brands that have been around for hundreds of years. And their innovation and what they did, those are all things that when we were building that, sort of that checklist of what we were looking for in that perfect partner, that's what resonated with us.
How much, you mentioned fresh snacking and thinking what it could become. How much education did you have to do together, the two of you, to strategics about what fresh snacking was? Because a lot of them aren't in that space.
Yeah, so no, it definitely took some education. I think part of it is a two-way street. So we're educating them because, again, we've had 15 years of solid foundational building, building the roof all the way through. We're the leader in fresh snacking, so they're coming to us. And then also they're providing that great consumer insights on here's what the consumer is looking for. We know that perimeter is growing X. We know it's one of the fastest growing sets in the store. And so it's a collaboration that really made it work.
One thing I'll just add there, though, is because fresh snacking was so new, we did have conviction that the right potential partner was probably a partner that had a really robust snack business. But what we were less sure of is, historically, most snacks have been shelf stable. And historically, when you talk to these partners, they don't really like switching temperature states, right? Mm-hmm. And we were kind of going, well, we think this is working just fine.
Exactly.
The business has scaled really nicely. We know how to manage refrigerated distribution. We know how to get into the cold case in the right place. We're developing these sets. But is a potential partner going to think the same way? So we did reach out to a broader group of potential partners than we did for one because we were less certain that we would get full buy-in from the right snacking partner, but we did.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And Janica, I know we talked about this. It sounds like you were able to position what might have been a potential hurdle as an asset so that if you want to learn more about chilled snacking, this is a great entrance into that set.
Absolutely.
And that came from strong financial fundamentals.
It did, and I think you could convince a partner that Fresh Snacking was real when you saw how well the company has performed, that it was significantly larger than anyone anticipated with, the best sell-through data in the category. So I think that really helps solidify the entire story.
And Peter, considering, you came in and kind of this path to exit was in the cards and playbook, what did it look like for one meeting with potential partners? Had you guys already done a lot of the legwork and thinking about where you might fit?
We were really trying just to build a really good business, because from start to finish, if you think about it, the team came in January 17th, so we were there for 2.5 years before exit. And as Janica mentioned, it was 14 months, right? So we really had about 14 months to get things right. But there was no question when we came in and looked at potential partners, you certainly could put Hershey at the top of the list. And ultimately, when we sat down and said, who do we think the potential partners are, we looked similar to Bill. We looked at company tradition, management team culture, fit, R&D, all the things that they could bring to this little protein business. I have the unique relationship with Michele Buck. We've known each other for a while. She's the CEO of Hershey. So we had a little bit of a personal relationship and dynamic, but you got to make sure that you're lining up with the right folks. Bill's is different because he's founder, CEO, family, right? I'm not, but I'm representing my founder, so I have to make sure that those needs are being met, but you got to pick the right one.
Was your founder involved in the process?
Oh, very much so. Oh yeah, absolutely. And absolutely knew what he did well. Ron's an innovator. He makes bars, he makes those things taste good, and he's smart enough to know what he doesn't do well, which is grow and operate a business from the sales marketing side. But operationally, nobody better.
Well, we just have a bit of time left. I guess let's wrap up by talking about how things have been since the deal's closed. What is it like, and I guess how did you go about telling the world? Like, what was your plan in sharing this?
For us,
Janica, did you have any advice on what they should do in sharing it or immediately post-close?
Usually what I think about is think about all the key constituents in your business, be it your employees, your customers, all of your influencers online, social media followers, and how do you kind of create a plan to address each segment really proactively, and ideally with your new partner's help or blessing, like having them show up to a meeting with a retailer or that sort of thing. But think about every single one, address them proactively, and think about where the pitfalls may be and ensure that you're doing something to avoid that.
For us, there wasn't really a big announcement because, again, it's a little different than a typical acquisition. It was a majority buy-in. And as far as how it's gone, it's been unbelievable. The partnership's been amazing, and we're set up for a great 2020. Really excited.
It's communication, right? So everyone in my business knew at some point in time and company that we were gonna exit the business. And when people are running in and out of your office and in suits in Boulder, it's like it's either the police or a big CPG company, right? So you sit with the employees, and a lot of them have worked for me before, and say, look, this is going to happen, and it's going to be good for you at some point and some level in your career. Don't assume the worst. This can be a very good thing. And so far, we're getting to know each other a little bit. I know the Hershey folks, but so far, so good.
Great. Well, thank you for communicating with us, sharing your stories, and looking forward to seeing what the future holds.
Thanks, Carol.
Sounds great. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe and ding that bell.